Part 3. Missing students. First, it's just rumors. Then it becomes a trend. Students vanishing without a trace. But when they return, they aren't the same. You've probably heard the whispers, right? Strange disappearances, one after another, and no one seems to care. It's just another piece of campus gossip, something you don't want to get involved in. After all, who wants to deal with that drama? But as the disappearances pile up, you start to feel it too, that strange, creeping sense that something is horribly wrong. And then one day you see them. Students who've been missing for weeks, who've just returned. But the change in them, the eerie blankness in their eyes, the coldness in their touch, it's hard to ignore. And that's when you realize, this is no ordinary campus mystery. You can't stop thinking about it. The feeling gnaws at you. What if these disappearances are connected? What if the students aren't just gone, they've been taken? And why do they always seem to come back different? You can't shake the idea that it's all tied to something darker than just a few weird coincidences. Each missing person, each returnee, there's a pattern. A connection to late-night parties, a secluded dorm with a twisted history, and whispers of something ancient and horrifying. Something has been hiding on this campus for years, and it's starting to surface. You know you should just let it go, but you can't. The more you try to ignore it, the more you find yourself drawn in. The deeper you dig, the closer you get to uncovering a nightmare. Let's go back to the beginning. It all started innocently enough, a few students disappearing over the course of a few weeks. Nothing to worry about, right? You heard the rumors but dismissed them. Some thought maybe it was just a coincidence. Others whispered about a few students skipping town or falling off the grid. But soon, the disappearances became impossible to ignore. They started happening in clusters. First, it was just one student here or there, no big deal. But then a week went by and 2 more were gone. Then 3. Then 4. Started to feel like no one was safe. Campus was full of tension, students looking over their shoulders, unsure of who would vanish next. And then, after days, sometimes weeks, those students would return. But something was off. Something about their return didn't sit right with anyone. They were different. They spoke less. Their eyes almost empty, hollow. They avoided eye contact. They didn't seem like the same people at all. First, you might have brushed it off. Maybe they were just shaken up or dealing with something. But that feeling in the pit of your stomach didn't go away. Something about their presence, it was unnatural. As you talked to more and more people, you realized you weren't alone in your suspicions. No one had concrete proof of anything, but whispers filled the air. Could it be the old dorm? That creepy, decaying building everyone avoided after dark? Everyone said it was haunted, but no one really believed it. Or was it? Some students had started to notice a strange pattern. Those who disappeared returned only after spending time near that old building. They'd show up late at night, walking alone, their faces pale and their steps slow, as though they were still half asleep. It wasn't just the students either. Faculty were starting to notice too. Strange reports of students acting differently. They couldn't explain it, but it was like something was taking over their minds. Some professors even claimed they caught glimpses of shadowy figures lurking around the school grounds after hours. A couple of staff members had been heard talking about strange noises, scratching sounds coming from the walls of the old dorm, late at night when no one else was around. And that's when things really started to escalate. The disappearances weren't just random anymore. They were happening on a schedule like clockwork. It was like something or someone was picking its victims. And those who returned, they became more and more disturbing as time passed. First, they seemed like they just needed to be left alone to get their bearings. But soon there was an underlying coldness to them, a terrifying calm that made everyone uneasy. Students started avoiding them, unsure of what they might do or say. No one knew what to expect from these once lively people who now seemed like mere shells of their former selves. As the disappearances grew, so did the rumors. Some said the students had made a deal with something dark. Others claimed it was the ghost of a former student who had died in a horrific accident in that very dorm. No one could confirm what was happening, but the fear spread. Even the bravest of students avoided the old building after dark. But you couldn't stop wondering, what happened to those who went missing? What were they doing in that place? And why were they so different now? You decided to find out for yourself. One night, unable to ignore the growing mystery, you did what everyone else was too scared to do. You went to the old dorm. The night air was thick with tension, and you couldn't shake the feeling that you were being watched. Every step you took was followed by the echo of your own footsteps, the silence pressing in from all sides. The dorm loomed in front of you, its windows dark, its once grand architecture now a crumbling relic of something long forgotten. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the walls covered in strange, faded markings that looked like they'd been there for years. Felt like the building had been abandoned by everyone except for them, the missing students. You could feel their presence, an eerie sense that you weren't alone. You turned a corner and suddenly froze. There, in the middle of the hallway, stood a figure, a student you recognized. But they were different, too still, too quiet. Their eyes met yours and you saw nothing. No recognition. Just emptiness. That's when you heard it, the scratching. A low, disturbing sound, like something was clawing its way through the walls. Panic surged in your chest, but your feet were rooted to the spot. You couldn't move. And that's when it hit you, this wasn't just some weird campus mystery. This was something far darker. The scratching was getting louder, closer. It was coming from the walls, from the floors, from everywhere. And then, through the cracks in the old plaster, you saw it. A figure, tall and thin, with hollow eyes and a twisted grin, crawling toward you. A scream caught in your throat, but it was too late. The last thing you remember was the cold touch of its fingers on your skin. You woke up in your own dorm room hours later, no memory of how you got back. But you weren't the same. No one is. You've seen what's behind the disappearances. You've seen what lurks in the old dorm, and it's not just the students. Whatever is pulling them in, whatever is changing them, is now after you. And you can feel it. It's only a matter of time before it comes for you too. If you want to know what happens next, you better keep watching. And don't ignore that creeping feeling.